Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. I'm Laura, and this is your flash briefing for the week of April 21st. City Council will hold a joint session with the Planning Commission on Tuesday night at 6 in Council Chambers in City Hall. Meetings are open to the public or watched live on the city's YouTube channel. If you can't watch, catch the recorded meeting on demand on the YouTube channel or by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Help keep medications out of waterways by participating in National Drug Take-Back Day on April 26th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This event is a safe and convenient way to dispose of unwanted over-the-counter and prescription drugs. Drop-off locations include the Lee Summit Police Department, the Lee Summit Medical Center, and the Places Restaurant at John Knox Village. Your feedback is needed on the city's capital improvement plan, which outlines anticipated city infrastructure improvements for fiscal years 2026 through 2030. The online comment period runs through this evening, April 21st, on the city's website, but comments can also be submitted in person at the April 24th Planning Commission meeting. And participate in Sweep the Summit, April 26th or 27th. Pick a street, grab some bags, and help clear litter from our community. Prizes will be awarded for the most unique item found, the most waste collected, and the best social media post. Please register the street or area that will be cleaned on the city's website. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.
This is the best place to work.
I love working here.
I feel very blessed.
I love it here.
I look forward to coming to work every day, being a part of this team.
Like a family away from home.
Where everyone feels like everybody knows their name.
A city that supports you. We see that with our benefits.
A pension, vacation days, job security.
Being able to be heard.
We feel valued. We feel respected.
Lee Summit is a very progressive city.
It's growing, it's thriving.
We have this drive towards not just doing a job, but doing it with a spirit of excellence.
I had the opportunity to continue to grow, regardless of 30 plus years doing this kind of work.
It's more than just dollars and cents.
We're here really to give back.
Providing a service to better a community.
To go out and serve people.
To be a part of something bigger than yourself. If I would have known what I know now, years ago, I would have been here much sooner.
So many of our past successes were made possible by understanding the multitude of perspectives in our community. When we take the time to see the world through someone else's eyes, we enrich our own understanding and foster an environment where everyone can thrive. When I see the renovations we've made to our parks, I see an investment not just in essential infrastructure, but in people that builds community and directly impacts the physical and social well-being of our residents.
I see equity, inclusive playgrounds where people from all walks of life can come together.
I see a place to play.
When I see the development we have helped facilitate in our community, I see the results of solution-oriented decision-making, with job opportunities, easier access to goods and services, housing options, improved infrastructure, and increased economic growth.
I see projects created through collaboration between the city and developers that will provide value, benefit, and opportunity to the Lee Summit community.
I see growth in community and a way to connect more people to their food.
When I see the major road improvements underway, I see well-connected and safe transportation that enhances mobility and increases access to local businesses, spurring economic growth, safe deliveries to homes, and happy trips to ball games and activities.
I see improved roadways, added sidewalks, and shared use paths for pedestrians and cyclists, safe transportation and recreation for all.
I see better connectivity, increase lanes, less congestion, and just make it easier to get around.
When I see the investments we've made in public safety, I see enhanced emergency preparedness and first responders who are ready on a moment's notice to protect the community and deliver immediate life-saving care.
I see the city value its fire department employees come to fruition in recruitment, retention, and a positive culture.
I see a community that can respond to emergencies quickly. My whole family lives in Lee Summit, so there's a lot of peace of mind there.
What we do is not just about making decisions and funding budgets. It's about enriching the quality of life for all of our residents. It's about realizing that a building is not just steel and concrete, a park is not just metal and ropes, a road is not just asphalt, and a city is not just land. It's about the experiences we provide to all people of all generations and backgrounds. I have always volunteered in the community and I was always really involved, but then I ran for school board. Whenever I got done with my term, I just felt like I had more to give. It's always been my goal from day one is to get everyone in the community connected and working together, and I always called it a spirit of community. Well, Mayor's 24/7 and I have a job. I've had to work really hard at compartmentalizing, is what I call it. So during this time, I'm going to do work. During this time, I'm going to be mayor, even though I can get a call at any moment about mayor stuff. And so I've had to even work that much harder at setting aside time for myself or for family. So I like to exercise, I like to work out. Hillary's my wife. She actually goes to work out with me as well. And we do like to go downtown to the shops. We make sure we maximize our time together. I mean, I've got 2 kids as well, and we spend a lot of time with them, or whatever time they will give us these days. And I have a dog. I think most people kind of know me know I have to have a dog. We have so much development going on, and we're growing fairly quickly, so we have a lot of infrastructure needs, and sometimes we have gaps in infrastructure, and we've always managed to get by, but with this kind of growth, we're really having to be creative and look at our options and just have a good plan for water, sewer, roads, and more. If we want to grow the most healthy way, we need a diverse economy. We do have a lot of retail that's opened up here, and there's been new construction for retail. We really need to focus in the future on bringing some, well-paying jobs here, good, strong employers that want to be located in this incredible community of now 101,000 people. A lot of our workforce does commute to work still, so they leave Lee Summit to go to work, and it'd be nice if we could keep some of those citizens right here in our community. The times I feel most proud are actually when I'm in the community and I see the community come together.
We have Buddy in the house. Mr. Mayor!
The tree lighting is always very fun. I always feel very proud. It's just a great warm feeling. The same thing goes for when the council will do something and we come together and make a good decision together. There's been a few of those that you go home feeling like a winner. And one of them was when we put together the downtown farmers market, when we bought the land, and it became real, all that hard work. But also the Diversity and Inclusion Commission, that was months and months of discussions and conversations that were really hard to have, and we went ahead and moved forward and as a council all together, and I was very, very proud of that. And there are a few things that the citizens have done that have really helped us tremendously. First, in the middle of a pandemic, they passed a use tax, which is a way for us to collect sales tax whenever someone purchases online. That helps shore up our revenues so that we can continue to provide as high quality services that our city provides. And it helps us take care of our employees, it helps us with our public safety and more. So I can't be more thankful to the citizens for that. Lee Summit has the opportunity to have a major impact on the economy in the Kansas City area. We already, as an economy, are rolling along with such a high median income. We have an amazing workforce here that are paying taxes, they're paying property taxes, they're paying sales taxes, they're keeping our economy rolling, and we really are getting the attention of all our neighbors. And I think that what's going to happen is you're going to see the opportunity for us to really get everybody's attention when businesses start moving here, bigger businesses and more so. You should try to find a way to give back to the community, whether it's at the city level, citizen committees, or just participating in some of our community conversations whenever we have those opportunities. It's worth coming out of your shell or taking that leap of faith and just showing up and saying, what can I do or how can I help? The more that we do this together, the more wonderful the community is.
The Finance and Budget Committee for Monday, April 21st. Can I get a roll call, please?
Chair Shields?
Here.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Here.
Councilmember Funk?
Here.
Councilmember Carlisle?
Okay. First item on our agenda is approval of the agenda.
Chair, I move to approve the agenda as published.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Can we get a vote, please?
Councilmember Funk?
Aye.
Chair Shields?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Aye.
All right. Do we have any public comments today? Members of the public wanting to come speak? All right. Then first item of business, item 5A, 2025-6888, approval of the April 7th, 2025 Finance and Budget Committee action letter. Do we have any discussion? And if not, I would look for motion.
Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve
the April 7th, 2025 Finance and Budget Committee action letter as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the action letter. Can we get a vote, please?
Vice Chair Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Funk.
Aye.
Chair Shields.
Aye. All right. Next item on our agenda is TMP-3256, an ordinance authorizing the use and terms with multiple dealerships for the purchase of vehicles and trucks for a period of 1 year with option to renew for 4 additional 1-year periods.
Good afternoon, Mark Stinson, Fleet Manager. Bring this ordinance for a request for approval to use this contract. It is a contract for 2026 model year vehicles. This contract was administered by the Johnson County, Kansas Procurement Division, and it included 23 separate entities, both from Kansas and Missouri. In this contract, there were 14 dealers that submitted responses, and all were met the qualifications to be utilized. This request will be more for the approved fiscal year 26 budget vehicle purchases. This way, by approving this contract now, we can be ready to move forward immediately after that budget is approved, which helps in getting vehicles in with long lead times. We anticipate, and in the requested budget will be 18 vehicles for an estimated total of $1.7 million. And I must clarify that any of those vehicles that will be over 75,000 will come back before this committee for approval, and utilizing this contract. So I hope that's not too confusing, but if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Do you have any questions from the committee?
Chair, I move to recommend an ordinance authorizing the use of terms of multiple dealerships for the purchase of vehicles and trucks for a period of 1 year with the option to renew for 4 additional 1-year periods to full council.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend TMP-3256 to full council for approval. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Can we get a vote, please?
Chair Shields.
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Funk.
Aye.
Next item, real meat of our agenda today is 2025-6895 presentation, the city manager's proposed FY26 general fund and public safety sales tax fund budgets. Mr. Dunning.
Right on time, isn't it, to hear the proposed budget. Thank you, Chair Shields. Mark Dunning, City Manager, here to present the fiscal year 26 general fund budget and public safety sales tax. I know at a previous meeting we presented to all of you our proposed revenues, and we did that in a way that was fairly conservative given the level of uncertainty. So what you will see tonight is, to the dollar, a balanced budget for what we propose for fiscal year 26 for general fund and public safety sales tax. And I should say that, and I say this every year, in my mind, this is the biggest annual plan / policy that we, being staff and yourselves, as elected officials, put in place for this community. It's allocation of resources with the desires to achieve certain desired end results. And so this is allocation of not just the finances, but it's manpower and initiatives that we put into this, equipment and things to make good things happen for this community. So with that general fund, I want to make this clear. It predominantly covers public safety, a lot of areas within public works and maintenance of our infrastructure, administration, law, finance, HR, those general fund departments. So this does not include the Parks Department, water utilities, things of that nature. So perhaps you could say this is our most flexible revenue stream, being the general fund. And then we'll talk about public safety sales tax here in just a moment. And I don't even have the presentation up. My apologies. Okay, so what we hope to work through and have discussion dialogue about, and I'll hit these slides next here, but we want to connect this plan, this budget back to our strategic plan, strategic investments that we feel are a priority given this budget year. We'll talk about expansion requests and then wrap up the general fund budget. And then we'll move into the proposed public safety sales tax budget. That's that half-cent public safety sales tax dedicated specifically for public safety. And along the way, I'll be doing a lot of the presentation, but our budget team, Rick Gentry, Eric Stoyanov, will play a part in this, Chief Snyder and Chief Forbes, as we get to the public safety sales tax, and then I'll do a wrap-up.
Mr. Dunning, before you
Yes.
hop really into the meat of this, just since we have one kind of new member of the committee and any members of the public who I'm sure are watching with rapt attention, you sort of just alluded to this. Can you explain why the general fund and this budget is kind of our most flexible? Like you say, we have some other parts of our budget that have dedicated revenue sources that we don't have as much discretion over. Is that?
That's correct. In that presentation, we'll call them the other funds, enterprise funds. Those will be done at a separate meeting. So the best way to explain that is as we have certain revenue streams, a lot of those revenue streams are specific and must be used for certain purposes, okay? Public safety sales tax is one of those, but it's driven by sales tax, so we put it in with the general fund. Fees, so water and sewer rates, right? Those are charges for services. That supports all things water utilities to maintain all the infrastructure, to make sure that those pipes stay closed and not leaking and things of that nature. There's business and industry funds. It's a percentage off the gross receipts from hotels. So I mentioned general fund. That's general tax dollars that provide us that most flexibility to fund certain operations within the city. Is that helpful?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is good to kind of put that up at the top so we understand what we're talking about today.
Yep. So, yeah, having said that, there's a lot, we probably spend more time on general fund in doing these presentations than the others because they're dedicated and can only be used for certain types of services. So we do want to tie back to our strategic plan, our community strategic plan, and this has been in place for a few years, and this is the Cliff Notes version of the strategic plan. We call these our 7 critical success factors. And so as we think about the services that we provide, the resources that we need, and what do we want to do differently, what new might we do, we always ask ourselves, does it fit within one of these 7 critical success factors? And I want to make it clear, it's not just the city, the organization's responsibility to try to make good things happen in these spaces. We rely heavily on our community partners, being the Chamber, Downtown Main Street, the EDC, our school environment. When you see collaborative relations with education partners, it's not just Lee Summit Schools, it's Blue Springs, it's MCC Longview, UCM. So we play a part in all of these, though, as an organization. So we do absolutely want to connect our budget and our resources back to the critical success factors. I'd like to lean on this as we do budget too, because to me this talks about our organizational approach to the delivery of services that we provide for this community. And what's not in here is our vision, but I'll share it. Our vision is to have a vibrant community ensuring the finest quality of life for all generations. That's an intentional continuous improvement statement. We don't know that we've ever fully achieved that. We don't have a thermometer saying you're at 80%, 90%. We're always striving for that. And then our mission statement is to enrich lives in our community through collaboration, creativity, and commitment. And I lean on those 3 C words. I pull that into how we approach our work and delivery of services. Collaboration, creativity, and commitment. Add to that SIS, stewardship, integrity, and service excellence. That's what we want to do in our approach to our work. Those are those values and commitments we want to bring to our work in providing services to this community. So let's start with this. I've mentioned this strategic plan. Another plan, efforts that we've put in motion is our city council priorities. And sometimes we call those the big rocks from the council retreat. And so you can see the 4 big rocks there. And I'll just quickly take you through beautification. Just heard a presentation on that last week. We can separate that into private aspects that we can focus in on and encourage, and the public sector aspects where we have control of and can allocate resources and programs to beautification. So we're starting to define what we want to achieve, how we want to achieve it, and what we're willing to commit behind those efforts. Same exists with solid waste. We just had, again, last week, a discussion about issuing that 2-year notice and the steps that we would take to have community conversations and considerations in that, I'll call it contracted services, contracted trash hauling services space. Housing will be coming forward in May. So that's the one that we haven't brought forward to you, but it's coming forward in May. So we're dialed in on that one. And then I know Public Works Committee had a good discussion about the stormwater space just recently as well. So those are priorities for us. Within this budget, we want to make sure that the resources align with those priorities. In addition, from that retreat, we don't talk much about the medium rocks, but I want to mention those because those are also things that we can be working on. There's thoughts around board and commission appointments and the Charter Review Commission process. And I'll look at Chair Shields and say, thank you for shepherding through that Charter Review Commission process. We've already got that defined. We already know what that looks like and the milestones are in order to make that happen. Another one was public safety. Let's be mindful of public safety. You'll see some of that within this budget presentation. Another one was let's put some focus to internal and external communications. That feeds right into the strategic plan of community engagement. You'll hear about a proposal here for a communication strategy within the budget. Another one was focusing in on sidewalks, downtown infrastructure, and some of those needs, and that's more predominantly in the capital improvements plan, but you'll see that when you see the capital improvements plan. And then we had sand, and I'll just hit on these real quick. Better training, orientation, and council connection to the organization. So that's more engagement with you all as elected officials. I want to see visible tax dollar projects out in the community. I think of the beautification space that we'll be talking about. I think about the safety barriers that we've got ordered and are coming for this community. Things of that nature that we want to make investments in the community that our public can see and appreciate and respect. And then the last one, better education about process for, say, street overlays and curb replacements and things of that nature. And I know Public Works Committee just heard a little report on how we go about that. So want to make sure that we're hitting on all those priorities as we came out of that council retreat. So this is, to my knowledge, it will be the first time that the city's general fund has exceeded 100 million in revenues and expenditures. And you can see to the dollar, we have a balanced budget. That's the plan. That's the goal. We should have a balanced budget. Let's utilize all the resources we anticipate to receive and invest that in this community and the services that we provide. To the left there, you can see our funding buckets, if you will. You can see property tax. This is more on that revenue side, the presentation you've already seen. You can see property tax, sales tax, and other revenue and franchise tax are starting to equal out. It used to be franchise tax was the third biggest revenue stream, but that's not the case anymore, given cable and telephone franchise tax have dropped over time. And then charges for service. So think building permit fees, things of that nature, where there is some level of participation in funding our operations. That's where you see charges for service. Over to the right then, different color. Intentionally, we wanted to show, if we were to slice this budget in certain ways from a lens of public safety, you can see almost 60 million dedicated to public safety. That's our two largest services that we can provide. So 55% of the budget there. General government, 31%. And then Public Works. I tie Public Works back to our citizen survey. When we did that, they want to see our city facilities, our infrastructure, our right-of-way maintained and looking nice. And so we sliced the budget that way just to give you a little bit of a perspective on what are the major things that are being funded out of this proposed budget. Okay, more specifically about the what's contained within the fiscal year 26 budget. Let's start to the left, Green Street. So we have found a way to fund a $44 million capital improvements project without, there was discussion about issuing special obligation bonds, and I'm thankful that we have found a way to fund that capital improvement project without issuing bonds and going in debt service for that project. Having said that, though, what we need to plan for is operational costs within this budget. So we are doing that. And quite honestly, in that space, I'll talk a little bit more here in a later slide about how we're able to forward fund some of those within the fiscal year 25 budget. And that would be done through a budget amendment, but I'll take you through that here in a moment. So programming, operational costs, those types of things are within this budget for that Green Street project. We'll be bringing on up the South Police Substation, the old Fire Station number 5. That's an additional facility that we'll need to program operational costs for as well. So that's within the budget. Workday transition. Workday probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but that's what we call our Enterprise Resource Planning System, so an ERP system. That is our financial and human resources backbone. Think pay and classification plans and all those systems that support the workforce and our overall financial monitoring within the city. It's a huge, huge, huge lift on us right now, predominantly HR, ITS, and finance. And so there's a huge commitment to that. That was a no tax increase bond issue project that we categorized in the public safety space and in the general fund, general services space to replace that system. So that is a massive effort that's underway that we will implement, and that's part of the reason why we advanced this budget a little bit this year, is so we can transition into that ERP software planning system along with this budget. Pay and growth plan. So this is one that came out of our Attraction, Satisfaction, and Retention Initiative, where we asked the workforce and we asked management team, what can we do differently to make sure that we're attracting, retaining, and maintaining a solid workforce here in the city. One of the top priorities was to do a pay and growth plan, to check where are we at with regard to our comparators. And so I'll talk a little bit more about how we propose to fund that one in a future slide too. But that's a heavy, heavy lift because we're looking at every job description. This is core general, I should say. Every job description, trying to match that up with what, we need to revise those. How do they compare to other communities? So it's a massive, heavy lift. Look at job descriptions, look at the pay and class plans, see how we can modernize, I'll say, our pay and growth plans. You'll see within this budget a 4% merit increase for core general employees. I should add to that one, in addition to the 4% merit increase, we're looking to adjust our pay ranges by 2%. If we don't adjust those pay ranges every now and again, you'll get way out of whack with your market comparators. So now that does not, I want to make this very clear, that does not mean that it's a 6% increase. The ranges will adjust 2%. Merits will be 4%. So I think one could argue, well, you kind of lose a little bit of your progression in your pay scales that way. Recognize that, but nevertheless, we feel that's the right thing to do at this point in time with our budget resources. And then lastly, joint operations facility and our phase 2 police department and court renovation project. That's another massive one that's going on, funded through our no tax increase bond issue. That will be coming on probably more so in the summer of 26, but we're thinking already about operational needs within that space, and that'll be a big project coming online too. Again, more facilities to maintain and operate. So we'll connect a lot of our budget back to these spaces as well. And feel free to interrupt me at any point in time. I'm certainly
I'm
happy
going to
about
ask you
that.
for just one more quick clarification. When you're talking about the core general, that's anyone who's not represented by a collective bargaining unit, is that right, or am I missing anything?
You're spot on. You're absolutely
So
spot
we have
on.
some employees who are in our police union, our firefighters union, our machinist union.
IAM, yep. We have 3 different representatives.
That's not included in this because they have separate contracts.
That's correct. We do those through negotiations since we have collective bargaining agreements for those work units. I should have mentioned here too, when I think about strategic investments, and this ties back to those projects that we see in the public, our people are our greatest piece of infrastructure. I truly believe that. And so you'll see investments that in our workforce, in our organization, that I feel is important, as well as projects that are external facing that all the public can see. So wanted to make that point. I believe this is my last slide. And before I go into our expansion requests, I should let you know So I mentioned a couple projects that we are planning to forward fund, I'll say, through our fiscal year 25 budget. As we look at how we anticipate to conclude the fiscal year 25 budget, there's opportunities. I always say, are we in an opportunity mode, or are we in a hold tight mode, or do we need to tighten the belt mode? And right now we're in an opportunity mode with our fiscal year 25 budget. So some of these expansion requests that came forward that we would plan to fund out of our fiscal year 25 budget, the pay and growth plan to the tune of $500,000. I mentioned it's a heavy lift to do a study like that. So that's in there. We would propose it through a budget amendment, but fund it through fiscal year 25. Green Street operations, $840,000 to put into the Green Street project fund to fund operations out of the fiscal year 25 budget. Thinking about this Green Street project and our City Hall campus and the parking garage and what we have here, it's really a civic campus. And so in order to maintain this campus, we're going to need resources. And so I'll hit on our CBS maintenance worker here in a minute, but to add to that, a gator that they could get around and perform maintenance and do some snow operations over here on a plaza that's not fit for, a Bobcat or a plow truck made sense. So funding that out of the fiscal year 25 budget as a piece of equipment to maintain, we'll call it the downtown civic campus. Public works equipment, and this falls into that beautification, taking care of our right-of-way and infrastructure. There's some equipment that they brought forward, a sign printer that does all our street signage that's on its last leg to the tune of $22,000. A mulcher attachment, a broom attachment, a chipper attachment, and a wheel saw attachment to take care of infrastructure. Gosh, I should have gone through those. I'd have to add it up. $43,000 for a mulcher attachment, $6,500 for a broom, $15,000 for a chipper, and we'll say $25,000 for a wheel saw attachment. Those are pieces of equipment that will make us become more efficient and effective in maintaining right-of-way. So we're saying we can pull those forward. And then a GIS study. So GIS, graphic information systems, but there is so much data that comes out of those systems, and we can manage our assets extremely well with that kind of data. We have GIS systems in, I'd say, almost every department, but are we bringing that data back to a central point and then making good things happen with it? We'd like to do a GIS study to look at those platforms and determine where do we need to go in the future. That's, to me, an investment in city facilities and our infrastructure facilities so we can be smarter with the data, and our data will talk to one another. So there's $50,000 in there to create a platform, a GIS strategy for us moving forward. Those are items that we pulled out of our expansion request for fiscal year 26 and said, can we fund those in fiscal year 25? They're predominantly one-time costs, so we're not incurring ongoing costs, and we feel comfortable in doing that. So I wanted to pause there and see if there's any discussion or if that's pretty clear in what we're proposing. That's not a slide we put on here, but I wanted to mention that.
I'll come through a separate budget amendment at another time.
That's correct. We would bring that through a budget amendment. Okay, so expansion requests, the total from all departments for this fiscal year was $5.7 million. If you know what the budget was, it was about 98 million. We're now over 100. So we don't have that much capacity to fund all expansion requests. So we can't fulfill all the expansion requests. As we went through expansion requests, then we need to prioritize. So we know that World Cup's coming. We know that. So out of the general fund, right now we have $250,000 as a placeholder as we continue to plan for World Cup. That's not the only source of revenue that we could consider towards World Cup. I think of the Business and Industry Fund. That's a fund that was intended to be utilized for attracting folks to this community, tourism, things of that nature. So there's potential resources there too. But we have a placeholder of $250,000 for World Cup purposes. We know the Chamber has a stakeholder group doing a lot of planning, and there's already been discussions about how might the city help. So we're thinking in that space right now. I mentioned the civic campus down here with our Green Street project. So a request to bring on a facilities maintenance worker to take care of this campus. So one worker, in order to do that, that connects back to the gator and just taking care of our city facilities. That ties back to our citizen survey, saying we want to see our facilities and infrastructure maintained in a quality manner. Human Resources Employee Referral Program. This is, you'll hear me say over and over, attraction, satisfaction, and retention. This was one of those ideas out of that effort that says, you know what, if we had a program like this, where employees who referred an employee could realize some kind of bonus for bringing on a great teammate, then we should consider it. So this would be a pilot program, putting $13,000 into HR. We've already looked at best practices for a program like that. We've already fleshed that out, so we have it ready to go. We just need to fund it. So that would be a pilot program that we would look for. In the ITS space, cybersecurity, last year we funded a cybersecurity manager. Now we're equipping that environment with some technology and equipment to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to protect our assets. Backup software, that relates to Microsoft 365. Again, kind of in that security and backup space with our data. You see 3 law enforcement bullet points there, or line items there with asterisks. And you can see the numbers over there to the right. What we're doing here is we're telling the police department, we're working with the police department. They're such a large organization. We know recruitment has been challenging for them, and we have a lot of positions that are funded but that are vacant. And so with these requests to add a police captain, a detention supervisor, civilian detention supervisor, and some interns, the thought here is let's not increase your budget, because but let's allow you the flexibility that if you want to reorganize your department based on your operational needs, we can do that in a way where we're authorizing the captain, the detention supervisor, and these interns, as long as you don't go over your budget, make it work however you can, given the challenging environment that we're in. So that's why you see those asterisks there, and how the approach that we're taking there. That some of that police captain predominantly will connect back to a position within the public safety sales tax that Chief Forbes will talk about. And then lastly, within the public works space, last year we were not able to fund, what was requested last year was 4 operators plus a dump truck. We funded 2 operators last year. If we tie into beautification and we tie into citizen survey, taking care of our infrastructure, snow plowing, all those kinds of things, we propose to fund the other 2 operators and bring on that dump truck, that piece of equipment, so that they can be productive out in our community. So with that, that's what we're able to fund through expansions. I should note on this slide too that, when you look at the 920, that doesn't add up to that increase between fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. Part of that's because of these operational costs that we need to be mindful of and fund in these facilities that we're bringing online. So I wanted to make that point as well. Okay, I think I had everything there. I think with that, I get to hand it on over to Rick Gentry.
Good afternoon, Rick Gentry, Budget Manager. Thank you, Mr. Dunning, Chair, committee members. Continuing on, so this is a general fund. So we're going to start looking at the numbers here. And so as we go through each one of these, we'll have a kind of a historical look back 3 years, and then we'll kind of see a comparison of FY25 to FY26 and kind of talk about the comparisons and the changes there. So you can see as our budgets increased each year from FY23 through FY26. We've gone from 93 million to 100 million. The FY25 budget, if you remember, that includes the one-time transfers we did for the fund balance, using the general fund balance for those one-time investments of about $15 million. So that's why it looks like 112 million versus the 97 we have in the current budget. So looking at kind of a year-to-year comparison, here you can see that FY25 budget with that 15 million removed. So you can see the progression from going from 97.6 million up to $100.8 million in our FY26 budget and increase. As we go through, you see it's just a small increase across the departments. Many of those, this reflects the inclusion of what we refer to as vacancy savings, which is, that's what helps us balance the budget. We know we're going to have open positions each year, and we have the way we budget for our insurance within our budget. We budget on the high level, so we know we have that flexibility to be able to make some adjustments to balance the budget. As we go through the list, our administration and a slight decrease as they've had some professional services that they don't need next year as they have in place this year. But it does include the increase for all of their, or all of these include the increases for personnel increases for the 4%, as well as all the retirements for the loggers, which is our local area government employees retirement system. Those went up 1% for all of our groups as well. So that's reflected in these numbers as well. And so we go down, so creative services, slight increase. They had some software increases on their department as well. Development services, most of theirs is built in with the increase for their employees, and they went through and reflected and did some updates on their expenditures as well for things that that occur every year or every 2 or 3 years expenses. Finance, we'll talk about the one at the bottom, citywide. We used to have a lot of what we refer to as citywide expenses in finance. Made the finance budget look ginormous, and it fluctuated greatly from each year. So we went through and kind of pulled those out. In a couple of slides, we're going to talk about what what's included in those expenses. But it also helped us identify some things where we had some savings, and I could do some other reductions as well. So that's why you see a significant reduction in finance. But it does provide all the needs for the department for staffing, training, and to be able to conduct the city's business. Fire department, you can see there's most of theirs is tied to the increase in salary and benefits. Human resources, a slight increase. Most of that, 13,000 is the 13,000, the expansion request we saw earlier. Law enforcement, again, most of theirs is related to the increased need or increases into the pay and class plan and their represented staff. Municipal court, their raises, as well as they have some additional needs to support some of the professional services that they have to contract out. Public works, their increase, most of that increase is related to the addition of the 2 positions and the purchase of the dump truck. The citywide, the largest increase down there, the 19%, looks significant. It is a large increase, and things included in that are things like the a lot of one-time transfers that we have to do between departments, as well as see those here in just a moment. Yeah, here we go. Citywide, what's included in that, so we can kind of talk about that. And these are the things, most of them used to be included in the finance budget as our overhead cost for ITS. That was all summed up into the finance budget, but it's a little over $5 million this next year. Insurance adjustment, that's the adjustments we make on our billing when we charge for ambulance transports. So when you see that, you get your EOB on your personal insurance, it's that adjustment from this is what the hospital charged you and this is what your insurance paid. We have to write that off as an expense as part of our budget plan. So that's that insurance adjustment. Bad debt is the actual writing off of bad debt on those that we cannot collect, or when somebody writes a check or makes a payment to a department and they are not able to collect that debt. That would be bad debt write-off. Next is the workday. That's a new item being added to our budget this year, the expenditure. So next year, that would be part of the ITS overhead expenditures. The first year, those are funded through the general fund, and then we transfer that over to ITS, as well as the other 2 software items identified on the expansion list. Those are things that are come out of the citywide category. Jackson Cass County collection, that's their cost to have the taxes collected, our property taxes that we pay the county, Cass and Jackson County for that. We've probably heard us referred to the GEMT program we participate in for the ground emergency medical transport. It's a program, and you'll see there's another expense down there for consulting. This is the expense side. On the revenue side, we see the revenue come in. This is to help us recover some of the money that we do or not able to recoup because of Medicare and Medicaid. Because they have fixed rates that it's all we can get when we have a patient that uses transport, and then that's capped. So this is a program to help us recoup that cost. And to do that, we have to track and break out all of our expenses for those programs, and that's where the cost reporting consultant helps us in identifying those costs and submitting those costs. We have to pay in $500,000 is our anticipated amount this year. We usually don't find out till about late April, early May, how much that cost is each year. So we're kind of guessing next year will be about $500,000. And then once in late June, that'll all be processed and reviewed. And then we'll receive back about $1.5 million on the revenue side. Green Street operations, so that's a new one. The $256,000. As Mr. Dunning mentioned earlier, one of those specific funds are the limited resources that we can use on spending money on. A new fund will be created in FY26. It'll be a special revenue fund for the operation of the Green Street facility across the street. So when they do collect rentals, have sponsorships or program, all that money will funnel through that program because it's specific to that program and that fund. Getting off the ground and getting started is obviously not going to be able to support itself fully. So this is the general fund's contribution to that for the first year, and it'll probably adjust as once the program's up and going and it can become a greater revenue generator. And there's the World Cup preparations expenses, election costs. That's for the cost of doing the general election for the council and be in the spring of 2026. The CBS expansion, that's expansion positions and other funds. There are the internal service funds. The first year is typically been paid out of the general fund, and then the next year it becomes an overhead cost. We're splitting it with the Green Street because that's also reflected over in Green Street. So it's part of that Green Street operations up above. And the bottom number is the vacancy savings. So that's how we balance the budget, get it all balanced up to the dollar. And that's kind of based on history of how many open positions we have and how much we have each year. Along with that cushion we kind of have in our insurance as well, that we feel comfortable with that number of $1.7 million, helping bring us into a balanced budget. So that's kind of what that citywide expense, and those things have all been in the finance before, and we just wanted to call those out, be a little more transparent, and that way we can truly see what our finance budget is. And this is the slide, kind of a trend slide for what Mr. Dunning started with earlier, which showed the revenues on one side and our expenditures. And you can see our public safety is our largest part. It's also the largest portion of our workforce out of the general fund, where it's coming from 58, 59%. General operation governments are usually around 30, 31%. And the public works portion of our budget's been anywhere from 12 to 16% of our operational budget. You can see how they've grown over the years as we've grown our budget each year. So earlier, before we talked about the departmentals. This is a reflection of the budget, looking into the different categories of the budget. How we spend the actual dollars. So again, those personnel services, that includes the raises for the core general at 4%, as well as the steps for the represented groups, whether it's fire, police, or the IM group, which includes water and public works staff. Those increases. And then most of the other ones, we can go to look and see the increases on the next slide here. The other supplies, services, that's our next largest group down. That includes a lot of our professional services, which is things like the auditing, our consultant charges, things when we pay contractors to do things like preparing curb and sidewalk replacement. We have a contractor that does all that work for us too. So we're doing repairs and things along that sort, as well as just regular office supplies, materials, staff training, and travel. Repairs and maintenance, seeing slight increase, probably a lot due to inflation. Utilities increase there, significant increase of 13% as we're bringing the police substations online. We're bringing the Green Street online, so those expenses are reflected in there as well. As well as I'm sure most of us have received the letter in the mail from Spire that they're looking to do a 15% rate increase in this fall as well. So we're anticipating some of those increases in utilities. Fuel and lubricants, pretty self-explanatory. The miscellaneous, that's that $500,000 GEMT expense that we pay once a year, as well as some other smaller expenses. Our capital outlay and interest, the council has approved in the past couple of years the lease purchase of fire pumper trucks and ambulances. So that's the interest and lease payment for the principal for those purchases. Interdepartmental charges is the charges from the general fund going to our 3 internal service funds, which includes ITS, our fleet operations, and our central building services. And then transfers out is just the transfer of money for one-time expenses to those departments. Any questions? This is our kind of a summation of our those categories, looking at the pie chart. You can see personnel, over 64% of our operating budget. So those are things we have to look at closely, monitor closely. You know, as Eric talked about revenues last month, we watched revenues monthly and our unknown times as far as what's coming forward. You see that personnel is our biggest portion, and that Mr. Dunning mentioned we might look at freezing open positions at a time and kind of monitoring that and managing that. So that's the largest part of our budget. This is it over the last 5 years, the growth in the general fund budget categories, personnel being our largest piece, and transfers, that bright green one that changes and fluctuates each year as we make those transfers. Next is the public safety sales tax. Public safety sales tax was passed in the April 2022 and started collecting at the end of 2022. And 2023, FY23 year, we started having some of our expenses, was able to add a few positions and started doing some of our purchases as they were planning and preparing for that. We did that through the budget amendments, and then 24 was our first full year of the public safety sales tax, with 25 being our second complete year, and 26 will be our third complete year. As you can see, as we go through that, there's fluctuations. One thing that has increased in constantly is the personnel costs, is because we're adding additional positions to the public safety sales tax. Those costs are going up. Supplies, services, repairs, and those other department charges, they fluctuate from year to year because all those are one-time purchases as they're making a large purchase and putting something in place that will then carry forward future years. So the ongoing cost may be the ERP replacement, such as in this example here, the FY26 budget transfer out. They were doing a recent approval was the purchase of life packs for the fire department. Those were, I think, it's a $1.4 million purchase. So we're planning the replacement here, about $70,000 of that's coming out of the public safety sales tax because they added additional units. The balance of the purchase for the future is coming out of the general fund, is reflected in the general fund. And by category, you can see 81% of the public safety sales tax is personnel. So it is very personnel heavy, and with it being being only be funded by the sales tax and the use tax for public safety, it's one we need to watch closely because it does impact personnel. So now I'll turn it over to the chiefs, and they'll talk about their expansion request in public safety sales tax.
Good afternoon, Mike Snyder, Fire Chief. So we have a few items that are up here for consideration this evening out of the public safety sales tax for the fire department specifically. The first one is something that we've been working on for many years. We put in a new radio system, I believe it was around 2019, 2020 when the fire department moved to the system. And unfortunately, one of the areas that we have not been successful in ensuring that we have good communications is our cave system. We've been in constant communication as they've had change of ownership and so forth and so on, trying to rectify that issue. I will tell you that today we're using our old system in there. It's just not very reliable, so that's why we're considering some additional options. This specific item is looking to place bidirectional amplifiers in the building, which basically is putting an antenna inside, and it runs an antenna to the outside, utilizing their shafts that they already have within that cave structure, just in the common areas, not going into the businesses. We'd work with them as our fire code moving forward does mandate that they have radio coverage if they have new businesses that go into that area. This is maximum exposure. Like I said, we've been communicating with the owners of that. We are looking for some sort of cost share, but I didn't want to start down the path and then not have the potential coverage for it if that's what we need, just specifically for the safety of our fire personnel. Obviously, it would be available for police and any other entities that are working on our talk groups within that. Estimates are coming anywhere between $250 and $350. Again, looking for a cost share on that, and this is that full coverage in case we're unable to come up with that. The next item on there is the Knox Secure Storage System. So today, we have Knox Box keys. That is a name of a company that provides it, and it allows us to have one key that has access to a box on the side of the building that then allows us to get into sprinkler rooms and other areas of that business if they so allow. Those keys, we need to improve our security with those within the fire department. This would allow that system to be installed on each fire apparatus and then also give us the benefit of being able to program that security wirelessly versus touching every apparatus in regards to that. And in addition, we would look to add our narcotic safes into that same system. So it would be within the Knox Secure system, two different purchases within that, but that's why the total price is in the 97 range. So that would put one of the boxes on each and every one of our ambulances, and then the secure system for the keys, which would require an individual PIN to remove that key from the vehicle and then provide some visual warning to each and every person when that key is removed. The power stair chairs, currently every one of our ambulances have the stair chairs on them. That allows us to move patients up and down stairs. They're all manual. Technology has changed, and ours are outdated at this point. So this would be replacing that fleet of devices that we use to move patients up and down stairs, and then hopefully reduce injury opportunities because it provides that mechanical assistance. The last item on there for fire is our communication specialist. We did have 2 expansions last year that are still within the budget. Unfortunately, we're still just trying to keep up, and we haven't been able to fill those, but we recognize in the 2019 study that was conducted by the city that we still need to show continual improvement towards increasing staffing within the communication center. You'll see the asterisk next to it because that's just a partial year. We're acknowledging that there's no way we'll get them hired in July. It'll probably be the third, fourth quarter of next fiscal year before that would become an opportunity depending on our candidate base that we have right now. So we did just go through a process. It sounds like they're moved 4 or 5 forward in that. So I'm very, very hopeful. We're sitting at about 4 openings right now with expansions plus a vacancy that was just recently created. So hopefully that opportunity will be able to be realized at the end of next fiscal year. But again, just trying to move forward the staffing recommendation as outlined in that 2019 study. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Chief of Police unless you have any questions.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. Travis Forbes, Chief of Police. Our expansions for public safety sales tax really mesh with our expansions in the general fund that you saw earlier. We have evaluated our structure and have determined the need for a restructure of sorts. A little over 5 years ago, we created the position of deputy chief. So directly under me is a deputy chief, and then we have 3 majors currently. In order to get that position several years ago, we eliminated a major's position. So we essentially kind of robbed Peter to pay Paul is what we did. And we've kind of felt it ever since. We have 1 major position that is a bit overtaxed. And 2 things that are under that position that I would like to devote more resources to are training and recruitment. We just had an assessor last week come through with the Commission for the Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, and frankly, he wrote a very glowing report about both our training and recruitment efforts, and I appreciate that, but we sit here today, we're still 15 officers short, and we've been about 15 officers short for the last 2 or 3 years. It's been very difficult for us to recruit, and so I'd like to devote more resources to that, and also the training element once they are hired with us. So this would facilitate that by splitting up that current major's responsibility, actually splitting them all up a little bit differently, but really that administrative major that we have that's pretty overtaxed at this time, and allowing us to devote a lot more efforts to recruitment and our training functions. So even though we're doing well, I always feel like we can do a bit better. So the major, and you'll see a new captain's position in the general fund. And you also see on this public safety sales tax, we're very excited about the virtual reality training systems that we're looking to install with the bond project that we're doing with the Phase 2 renovation of the police department. We're putting in a space for this VR training system, and the vendor that we're leaning toward actually 3D scans areas of your own city. So if we wanted to do the Market Plaza or a school in Lee Summit, we could do that actual site, and our officers could virtually train in that environment. So it's not like the old video games of old where you train in some area that was based off somewhere in Los Angeles or something like that. So we're pretty excited about the opportunities to improve our training and recruitment, and even with the addition of a major and a captain in our expansion request, we're still very lean as far as command staffs go. If you look at departments around our area, you'll find that we have fewer commanders than most departments based upon our size. So any questions for me? If not, back to Mr. Dunning. Thank you very much.
So here's our wrap up. As you've seen, right, a balanced budget on the general fund side. As you'll look on the public safety sales tax side, we are investing some resources out of the public safety sales tax reserve to bring on what we would consider one-time expenditures to the tune of just over $1 million. So we wanted to make sure and show what we have in reserves with that expenditure at the tune of, nearly $4 million. So we do want to maintain a healthy reserve in that, no different than we do in the general fund, and we have a comfort level with that request. So that's what you're seeing there is the overall summary of those two budgets. And then discussion point, right? Like I said, our budget is a plan for a whole year. And truth be known, along the year, we do budget amendments because things change. And so this year, I believe we've done 8 budget amendments thus far. And that's what I feel we're supposed to do, is to make those adjustments as we work the plan along the fiscal year. And so what are some of those options that we have given the level of uncertainty and the conservative approach we've taken with the budget with regard to sales tax and some other revenue streams? Looking at this on a monthly basis. I would say we've done a lot better job with our budget team in place looking at these on a quarterly, especially a mid-year basis, and making adjustments along the way, but we can certainly do more as we face levels of uncertainty. So looking at those continually along the budget year. Rick mentioned doing a vacancy analysis. That's a tool that we use when we need to tighten the belt, when a vacancy occurs. Just asking ourselves, is that a position we need in the future? And if not, let's hold on that for a while until we get a greater level of certainty on where things are going. So those are tools. These are tools that we have available in order to make adjustments throughout the year. And as mentioned, 64% in personnel, right? That's people. We can do that through vacancy savings and things of that nature, and that vacancy analysis process that I mentioned. Those other supplies and services, consulting fees, mowing of code abatement projects and things of that's where all that lives. That's 15%. So those are our biggest 2 areas where we can make adjustments within our budget to balance the budget. So these are some of those tools that we can use. Work the budget throughout the fiscal year. And wrapping up, we're here today doing the general fund and public safety sales tax and the expansion requests. As I mentioned, those other funds, those will come forward on May 5th to the Finance and Budget Committee. And then all of this, the revenue projections, the general fund, public safety sales tax, all the other funds will wrap up in a public hearing before the council on May 13th with a second reading in May. So with that, myself, budget team, our management team are here to answer any questions that you might have.
Much. I can see a lot of work went into putting all this together, and
Want to kick it off? You guys good? All right. Thank you, Mark and staff again. Come a long ways. I remember the first finance and budget committee meeting a few years back. It was multiple evenings, it was multiple hours, and every one of the department heads presented, and we were here a long time. So thank you guys for condensing it, but being very thorough. So with that being said, just one question to kick it off. Where does the reserve balance fit in on all this?
Yep, so we have a general fund reserve balance policy where we want to maintain in the reserves a level of no less than 25%. And then if we have over 35%, then we have, we're back in an opportunity area where every year as we do our financial audits, we look at where our general fund reserve sits. And if it's over that 35%, then the city manager is to bring forward recommendations on how to invest those resources so that we're continually investing in the community, not just having that sit in the general fund reserve. So, Brianna, do you have where we sit today? I don't have that number on me, but I know we just did some allocations, and we're still in accordance with the policy. I do know that.
Yeah, so the last time we reviewed this in Finance and Budget, we got ourselves right at that 35% marker. I don't recall the exact fund balance number, but we should be, our plan is, depending on how we end this year, which I think we are trying to pull forward some expenses so we don't have as much excess. But our plan with the budget is to not add necessarily anything more. So again, targeting that 35% cap.
So that was factored into this budget.
Yeah,
expansion.
and I would say some of those investments, right, that's a big portion of how we're able to fund Green Street without doing special obligation bonds and incurring that debt. Those safety barriers, the communication strategy was one funded out of the general fund reserve. So we're trying to make those wise investments with those resources. Again, one time, coming out of the general fund reserve.
I'm good for now. Thank you, appreciate that.
Balanced budget, your plan is not to add.
Right, and in a way, those expansion items that I rattled off that were forward funding, I'll say, out of 25, if we don't do that, right, then we could be in a position. So I guess in many ways you can think of it as, if that went to general fund reserve, how would we invest those resources? And we're making a recommendation saying, from a maintenance perspective, and we feel these would be priorities to put in place.
We'll consider that again at that moment, like we did this here recently.
We'll consider those in a budget amendment, but you could think of it as that's extra money in the current year's budget.
Great way to put it.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you. And so while we're on this topic of the reserve balance and what we do with those funds, you just said that we're not planning on adding to the reserve balance this year because of the forward funding that we're doing. So that forward funding, can you tell us where those dollars are coming from?
As we look to close out the fiscal year 25 budget, putting those investments in motion during this year, because they were fiscal year 26 expansion requests. Pulling those forward between today and the budget hearing and receiving direction from council to make that happen out of this year's budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Are you asking, I think you're thinking vacancy savings is really our predominant savings.
Okay, yes, that's exactly what I was trying to get to. Like, where did those dollars come from within the current budget? Because they were already budgeted for. We're obviously not using them. So they're coming from vacancies that we just didn't get filled or became vacant throughout the year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Staff, do we have any other questions from the committee?
Okay, thank you.
Then the last item on our agenda is roundtable. Do we have any?
That was a big learning lesson. I just absorbed a lot.
Yeah, this is definitely the drinking from the fire hose part of the job, for
Yeah.
sure. So
Yeah.
I hope it was informative.
Thank you, Mr. Dunning, and your team.
Do you have any roundtable from staff?
Only item that
Sorry, we do have one more from council. I apologize.
I'm sorry, I should have jumped in there earlier. I just wanted to maybe put this out there in our budget reserve amount. And do we think, with what we see coming and has already came down through the governments, do we still think that that reserve balance is enough? Do we need to add to it? Should we subtract from it? Like, I just want to make sure that we keep that, as we're always looking at the funds that we're getting in and that we're spending, just making sure that that reserve balance and the way we use it is always in line with what we see coming in the future. So I would just ask if we think that that's still a good policy or if we need to tweak it in any way. And maybe that's a question I should throw out to staff as well. Like, could they bring it forward and tell us what they think about it as well?
And maybe part of the question to address there is when we prepared the policy, it was based on not knowing what the future would look like and trying to have a responsible policy, whether we're in a positive economic climate or not. And then would you agree with that assessment? And also, are there any new guidelines coming down from GFOA that would make you think that we need to amend this at all at this point based on the uncertainty that we're seeing?
I would say generally, I would lean towards staying at the top end of our policy. If there has been any shift in the past several years, is that you are seeing those reserve balances get higher and higher just because of that economic uncertainty. So we are right at that cap right now, and I would hesitate drawing down further on it until we kind of understand the impacts of the changes at the federal level to us. Until we have some settlement in the economy, it's going to be some, interesting times to work through. So I think that's why we are trying to be conservative in our numbers and then try to use strategies around those vacancies, because we obviously still do have high vacancy savings, but we also have that compensation study, pay and growth study coming that will hopefully help us with attracting and retaining those individuals so we don't have that vacancy. So hopefully that answers it.
And if I could add, Chair, I know Chair Shields worked hand in hand with Mr. Dunning and staff as we came up with the high and the low. And I think the idea was for us to have discretion on whatever happened down the road. But yet, the bottom line is we protect our bond rating. I think that was the most important part, right? So that we don't ever jeopardize our credit worthiness.
Yes, I would agree with that. And that's where I would say you started to see a trend where really those AAA cities are having over 35%. So we're really kind of at, that has shifted a little bit. I don't know that it is stayed steady long enough at that level that we really need to revisit it, especially since the policy is so new. But I think it's something that we monitor and look at and kind of evaluate as we continue to go. So that's why I kind of say stay towards that top end would be my recommendation.
I think that's good feedback, and if you start to feel like that's changing or you're seeing those trends really continuing of other AAA cities kind of having higher balances, that it's something that we could address again in the future. I think where, a big part of that discussion is always kind of balancing our bond rating, our long-term stability, our rainy day fund versus the challenges of inflation, knowing that we're losing purchasing power and not investing resources in the community when they can be used to the best value. So we're kind of trying to find that sweet spot. So, but it's a good question for us to keep an eye on.
Only follow-up I was going to have is Eric so kindly sent us the fund balance spreadsheet that we went over in February, and so our fund balance is at $34,074,038 right now. So that's that
just
35%
the unallocated, because there's some things that we've allocated funds to but haven't been spent down, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then our other plans that we had to pursue within budget funding and stuff, we moved forward with that, so, in alignment with that discussion, so. Yeah.
Have anything further? I will adjourn this meeting at 5:06 PM. Thank you, everyone.